I thought I was teaching my kids about opportunity. Instead, I taught them that their father was a fool. $520,000 gone. And the worst part? It wasn't losing the money. It was watching my son look at me like I was a stranger, like the man who raised him had disappeared. I'd built a career on helping people grow their wealth, 37 years as an investment advisor in Manhattan. I'd guided doctors through retirement planning, helped entrepreneurs diversify their portfolios, walked young couples through their first stock purchases. People trusted me with their futures. My reputation was spotless. But my kids? They never saw me that way. My daughter Emma worked in venture capital. She'd talk about billion-dollar valuations and disruptive technologies like she was discussing the weather. My son, Michael, ran his own consulting firm. Both of them brilliant. Both of them successful. And both of them, I sensed, thought their old man was outdated. Dad still thinks mutual funds are exciting, Emma had joked at Thanksgiving. Everyone laughed. I'd laughed too, but it stung. I was 69 years old, retired for 3 years, and I felt invisible in my own family. My wife, Patricia, tried to reassure me. They love you, she'd say. They just have different lives now. Different lives. That's what hurt. I wanted them to see me as more than just dad who played it safe. I wanted them to know I could still spot opportunities, still think big, still compete in their world. That need, that desperate, stupid need, made me vulnerable to Sabina. I met her at a financial technology conference in Manila. I'd gone on a whim, combining it with a Southeast Asia trip Patricia and I had planned. The conference was full of young entrepreneurs pitching ideas. Most of it was noise to me. But then Sabina approached during a coffee break. "Mr. Stokes?" she said, extending her hand. "I heard you speak on the panel about portfolio diversification. Brilliant insights." I hadn't spoken on any panel. She'd confused me with someone else. But I didn't correct her. She was striking, mid-30s, sharp business suit, confident handshake, and she was treating me like I mattered. "I run a small investment group here in Manila," she continued. "We focus on early-stage tech companies, mobile commerce, fintech, AI integration, the kind of opportunities that are reshaping how Asia does business." "Sounds ambitious," I said, trying to sound knowledgeable. "It is, but we're selective. We only bring in investors who understand the vision." She paused, looking at me carefully. "People with real experience, not the crypto kids who think they've discovered money." That phrase hooked me. The crypto kids. She was speaking my language, validating my years of traditional finance experience while offering me entry into the new world. "I'd love to hear more," I said. She smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." We met for dinner that evening at a restaurant overlooking Manila Bay. Patricia had gone to bed early with a headache, so I went alone. Sabina arrived with a leather portfolio filled with documents, business plans, financial projections, testimonials from supposed investors. "This is our flagship opportunity right now," she said, sliding a presentation across the table. "A mobile payment platform that's about to launch across 5 countries. We've already secured partnerships with major retailers. The growth potential is exponential." The numbers looked incredible. Projected returns of 400% over 3 years. Revenue forecasts that climbed like a hockey stick. Testimonials from investors I'd never heard of but whose credentials sounded impressive. "How much are you looking to raise?" I asked. "We're almost fully subscribed," she said. "But I could make room for someone with your background, someone who could add strategic value, not just capital." Strategic value. She was flattering me, and I knew it, but I wanted to believe it. "What kind of investment are we talking about?" "Our minimum is typically $500,000, she said casually. "But for the right partner, we're flexible. $500,000. It was a significant portion of my retirement savings. But if the returns were even half of what she projected, it would be transformative. More importantly, it would be proof. Proof that I could still identify opportunities. Proof that I understood this new world my kids lived in. Proof that I was more than just an old man with outdated ideas about mutual funds. "Can I take these materials with me?" I asked, gesturing to the documents. I'd like to review them carefully. Of course, she said. But I should mention, we're closing this round in 2 weeks. After that, the minimum investment jumps to 2 million. The artificial urgency. Looking back, it's so obvious. But in that moment, sitting across from this confident, articulate woman who treated me like I mattered, I didn't see the manipulation. I saw opportunity. I saw a chance to make my children proud. I'll be in touch, I said. She smiled. I'm counting on it, Mr. Stokes. I have a feeling we're going to do great things together. I walked back to the hotel that night feeling 20 years younger. I had a secret, a plan, a vision. I was going to surprise my family with news of a brilliant investment. They'd see that their father still had it. I didn't realize I'd just met the person who would destroy my family's respect, my marriage's trust, and more than $500,000. I didn't realize that my need to impress my children would cost me everything they actually valued about me. I just felt excited. For the first time in years, I felt like I mattered. Patricia noticed the documents on our hotel room desk the next morning. "What's all this?" she asked, flipping through the presentation. "Just something I'm looking into," I said, trying to sound casual. "Investment opportunity. Early stage tech company." She frowned. "Clifford, we're on vacation. Can't this wait?" "It's time sensitive," I said. "I'm just reviewing the materials. No commitments." That was the first lie. I'd already committed in my mind. I was already imagining the phone call to Emma and Michael. "I've invested in a Southeast Asian fintech company. Early stage, high growth potential. Let me walk you through the opportunity architecture." They'd be impressed. They'd see me differently. Patricia set the documents down. "Just be careful. You don't know these people." "I spent 37 years evaluating investments," I said, more defensively than I intended. "I think I can handle due diligence." She didn't argue. She just gave me that look, the one that said she knew I was being stubborn but wasn't going to fight me on it. I spent the next 2 days researching the investment, but I wasn't really researching. I was looking for confirmation, not red flags. I Googled the company name, found a professional-looking website with stock photos and vague language about disrupting mobile commerce. No real information about the team, the technology, or actual operations. Normal due diligence would have stopped there. But I kept going, looking for reasons to believe. I found a LinkedIn profile for Sabina that listed her as CEO of 3 different companies. The profiles looked legitimate, professional photos, detailed descriptions, dozens of connections. I found what appeared to be news articles about the mobile payment platform. They mentioned funding rounds, partnership announcements, expansion plans. I didn't notice that all the articles were on obscure blogs I'd never heard of. I didn't check if any legitimate financial press had covered the company. I wanted to believe, so I found ways to believe. Sabina called me on our last day in Manila. "Mr. Stokes, I hope you've had time to review the materials," she said. "Have you had any thoughts?" "I'm interested," I admitted, "but I'd like to speak with some of the other investors. Get their perspective." "Absolutely," she said smoothly. "I can arrange calls. Though I should mention, 2 more slots were filled yesterday. We're down to our final allocation. The urgency again. Creating scarcity, manufacturing pressure. How many spots are left?" I asked. 3. But 1 is likely to close this week. A fund out of Singapore. I felt my window narrowing. "What would you need from me to move forward?" "Just a letter of intent and initial deposit, 20% to secure your position. The remainder within 30 days. 20% of $500,000. 100,000. Can I wire it from the States?" I asked. "Of course. I'll send you the banking information." I should have asked why a Philippine company needed money wired to an account in Belize. I should have questioned why there was no formal investment agreement, no legal documentation, no third-party escrow, but I didn't ask any of those questions. Instead, I asked, "When can we schedule those investor calls?" "I'll set them up for next week," she promised. "You're going to love hearing their experiences." I flew back to New York feeling like I was carrying a golden ticket. Patricia could sense my excitement but didn't press. She'd learned over 42 years of marriage that I needed to work through things my own way. The investor calls never happened. Sabina emailed 3 days later. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Stokes. The other investors are traveling this week, but I don't want you to miss this opportunity. The Singapore fund confirmed yesterday. We're down to 2 spots. I could have walked away. Should have walked away. Instead, I wired $100,000 to a bank in Belize. I told myself it was just the deposit. If anything seemed wrong, I could still back out before sending the remaining $420,000. But I'd already crossed the line. Once you send that first payment, you're committed. You've invested not just money, but ego. Backing out means admitting you made a mistake. I wasn't ready to admit mistakes." Sabina confirmed receipt of the wire with an enthusiastic email. "Welcome to the family, Clifford. You've just secured your position in what I believe will be one of the most successful ventures in Southeast Asian tech. Our legal team will be sending the formal agreements this week." I forwarded her email to Emma and Michael with a subject line, "Your old man still knows how to spot opportunity." Emma responded first. "Dad, what is this? What company? Have you had a lawyer review the terms?" Michael's response was more direct. "Please tell me you didn't send money to someone you met at a conference." Their skepticism stung. This was supposed to impress them, not worry them. "I've done my research," I replied. "This is a legitimate opportunity. You'll see when the returns start coming in." Emma called that evening. "Dad, I work in venture capital. I've never heard of this company. The website looks fake. There's no legitimate press coverage. This has all the hallmarks of a scam." "I've been evaluating investments since before you were born," I said, my voice harder than I intended. "I think I know what I'm doing." "Then show me the documentation," she pressed. "Let me have our legal team review it." "There's nothing to review yet," I admitted. "The formal agreements are coming." Silence on the line. Then she said, "Dad, please don't send any more money until we can verify this is real. I've already committed." I said, "I'm seeing this through. You've already sent money?" Her voice rose. "How much?" "That's between your mother and me," I said, and ended the call. Patricia looked at me from across the living room. "How much did you send, Clifford?" I couldn't meet her eyes. 100,000? It's just the deposit." Her face went pale. "You sent $100,000 to someone you met 3 days ago? Without consulting me? Without having a lawyer review anything?" "It's my money," I said, "from my retirement account." "It's our retirement," she said quietly. "Everything we have is ours." She was right. But I'd already committed, and I wasn't about to let my family's skepticism make me look foolish. I was going to prove them all wrong. I was going to show them I still had it. The formal investment agreements never arrived. Every week, Sabina had a new excuse. "Our legal team is backlogged. We're restructuring the partnership terms to give early investors better positions. The documents are being translated and notarized. I should have demanded my deposit back. Every day that passed without documentation should have been a screaming alarm. But I'd already told my kids about the investment. I'd already defended it against their skepticism. Backing out now meant admitting they were right and I was wrong. My ego wouldn't allow it. Instead, Sabina kept me engaged with updates. She'd send emails with subject lines like, "Exciting developments," and "You're going to love this." Each email contained vague news about partnership discussions, technology breakthroughs, expansion plans. Nothing concrete, nothing verifiable, but enough to keep me believing. 6 weeks after my initial deposit, she called. "Clifford, I have incredible news," she said, her voice bubbling with excitement. "We've just secured a major partnership with one of the largest retail chains in Indonesia. This is going to accelerate our timeline by at least a year." "That's wonderful," I said, feeling validated. "See, this is real. This is happening. There's just one small complication," she continued. "The partnership requires us to expand our infrastructure faster than we'd planned. We need to bring in the remaining capital earlier than expected." My stomach tightened. "How much earlier?" "We need the full investment within 2 weeks. I know that's faster than we discussed, but this opportunity is too significant to delay. $420,000. 2 weeks. Sabina, I still haven't received any formal documentation, I said carefully. I can't send that kind of money without legal agreements in place. Of course, she said smoothly. I completely understand. Let me expedite the paperwork. Can you give me 3 days to get everything to you? 3 days? I promise, Clifford. Full investment agreements, partnership documentation, everything. But I need you to be ready to move quickly once you have them. This partnership window won't stay open long. I wanted to say no. I wanted to demand the documents first, review them carefully, have my lawyer examine every clause. But I also wanted to prove my kids wrong. I wanted to show Patricia I knew what I was doing. I wanted to be the man who saw opportunity where others saw risk. 3 days, I agreed. But I need complete documentation. You'll have it, she promised. The documents arrived via email on the 3rd day. A 50-page investment agreement filled with legal language, corporate structures, share allocations. It looked legitimate, official, real. I didn't notice that the law firm listed in the documents didn't exist. I didn't verify that the corporate registration numbers were fabricated. I didn't check that the signatures were digital forgeries. I saw what I wanted to see, proof that I was right. I called Emma before wiring the money. Part of me wanted her approval. Part of me just wanted to prove her wrong. The formal agreements arrived. I said, everything checks out. Dad, please send them to me, she said. Let me have our team look at them before you transfer any more money. I've already reviewed them, I said. They're standard investment documentation. You're not a securities lawyer, she said, frustration creeping into her voice. I work with these kinds of agreements every day. Let me help you. I don't need help, I said. I need you to trust that I know what I'm doing. It's not about trust, she said. It's about being smart. Even experienced investors get second opinions on major commitments. I've made my decision, I said. I'm moving forward. She was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, how much more are you sending? I hesitated. The full balance, $420,000. Dad, no, please, just wait 1 week. Let us verify. I've waited long enough. I cut her off. The opportunity window is closing. If I don't move now, I lose my position. Then lose the position, she said, her voice breaking. Dad, this has every red flag. The pressure tactics, the vague updates, the constant delays on documentation. This is exactly how investment scams work. It's not a scam, I said coldly. And I'm disappointed that you have so little faith in my judgment. I heard her crying on the other end. I have faith in you. I'm terrified someone is taking advantage of you. I'll talk to you after the first distribution, I said. When you see the returns, you'll understand. I ended the call and immediately initiated the wire transfer. $420,000 to the same Belize account. Total investment, $520,000. Everything I'd saved over a lifetime of careful, conservative investing, gone in 2 transactions. Patricia found out that evening. Not from me, from our accountant, who called her when he noticed the large withdrawals from our retirement account. You sent more? She said, her voice shaking. You sent everything? It's an investment, I said, not an expense. We'll get returns. You don't even have proof this company exists. She shouted. Our accountant looked them up. There's no registration, no filings, no legitimate business presence anywhere. He doesn't understand tech companies, I said. They operate differently. Clifford, you're being conned, she said, tears streaming down her face. Our children are begging you to stop. Our accountant is warning you. I'm telling you, this doesn't feel right. Why won't you listen? Because I'm tired of being treated like I'm incompetent. I yelled back. I'm tired of being the old man who doesn't understand the new economy. I've spent my entire career making smart financial decisions. I know what I'm doing. She stared at me like she'd never seen me before. No, Clifford, you don't, and it's going to destroy us. She left the room. I heard our bedroom door close. I sat alone in my home office, looking at the wire transfer confirmation on my screen. $520,000, sent to a woman I'd met once, for a company that probably didn't exist. But I couldn't admit that. Not to Patricia, not to my kids, not to myself. So I waited for the returns that would prove everyone wrong. I waited for validation that never came. The first distribution was supposed to arrive 30 days after the final investment. Sabina had promised quarterly returns, starting with a modest 8% payout to demonstrate the platform's revenue generation. 30 days came and went. No distribution, no communication. I emailed Sabina, no response. I called the number she'd given me. It went straight to a disconnected message. I felt the first cold touch of real fear. I spent the next week trying to find her. I searched for her company online. The professional website I'd seen months earlier was gone. Just a dead link. I tried her LinkedIn profile. Deleted. I searched for news about the mobile payment platform. Nothing. The blog articles I'd read before had vanished. I contacted the law firm listed on my investment documents. The phone number was disconnected. The address was a mail forwarding service in Singapore. Every thread I pulled unraveled into nothing. I'd sent $520,000 to a ghost. I couldn't breathe. I sat in my office, staring at the investment agreement on my desk, and felt the room spinning. How could I have been this stupid? How could I have ignored every warning? How could I have let my ego destroy everything? Patricia knocked on the door. Clifford, the distribution was supposed to arrive today, wasn't it? I couldn't look at her. It's delayed. How delayed? I don't know. Silence. Then she asked, Can you reach her? No. I heard Patricia's sharp intake of breath. Clifford, what does that mean? It means I can't reach her, I said, my voice hollow. Her phone is disconnected. Her emails bounce back. The company website is gone. Oh my God, Patricia whispered. Oh my God, Clifford. I finally looked at her. She was crying. Not angry crying, devastated crying. How much did we lose? She asked. All of it, I said. 520,000. She grabbed the door frame to steady herself. That was half our retirement savings. I know. You promised me you knew what you were doing, she said, her voice breaking. You swore you'd done your research. I thought I had. No, she said, anger cutting through her tears. You didn't think. You wanted to impress our children so badly that you stopped thinking. You ignored me. You ignored them. You ignored every warning sign because your pride was more important than our future. She was right. Every word was right. I'll fix this, I said. I'll report it. Get law enforcement involved. Maybe we can recover. Recover what? She interrupted. Money you sent to a foreign bank account? To a woman who doesn't exist? With no contracts, no witnesses, no legal recourse? I had no answer. She left the room. I heard her on the phone in the kitchen, calling our accountant, starting the terrible process of assessing the damage. I sat alone, surrounded by worthless documents and my own crushing shame. I had to tell Emma and Michael. I called Emma first. She answered on the second ring. Dad? You were right, I said. About everything. Silence. Then she asked, What happened? It was a scam. The company doesn't exist. Sabina is gone. The money is gone. I heard her crying. Oh, Dad. Oh, no. I'm sorry, I said, my voice cracking. I should have listened to you. I should have. How much did you lose? 520,000. She made a sound like she'd been punched. Jesus, Dad. That's almost everything you had. I know. What about Mom? Does she know? She knows. Is she okay? No, I admitted. She's not okay. None of us are okay. Emma was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, distant. I need to call Michael. We'll figure out what to do. Emma, I can't talk right now, Dad. I need time. She ended the call. Michael called an hour later. He didn't sound sad. He sounded furious. How could you be so reckless? He said, his voice tight with controlled rage. How could you risk everything without even basic verification? I thought I'd done my research, I said weakly. You didn't do shit, he snapped. You Googled a fake website and sent $500,000 to a stranger. That's not research. That's insanity. Michael, I made a mistake. A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill, he interrupted. This is catastrophic negligence. You've destroyed your retirement. You've compromised Mom's security. And why? Because you wanted to prove you were still relevant? His words cut deeper than anything Patricia had said. Because they were true. I wanted you to be proud of me, I admitted. Proud? He said incredulously. Dad, I was already proud of you. You built a successful career. You raised us well. You've been married for 42 years. That's success. But now? Now I'm just ashamed. Ashamed. The word hung between us. I'm going to help Mom figure out the financial damage, he continued. We'll see if there's any legal recourse, though I doubt it. But you need to understand something, Dad. This doesn't just affect you. This affects all of us. I know. I don't think you do, he said. Mom's retirement is compromised. Emma and I are going to have to help support you both now. Our kids' college funds might have to be diverted. This ripples through the entire family. I hadn't thought about that, hadn't considered that my mistake would burden my children financially. I'm sorry, I whispered. Sorry doesn't fix this, he said. I have to go. He hung up without saying goodbye. I sat in my office as the sun set, watching shadows crawl across the walls. I'd lost more than money. I'd lost my children's respect. I'd lost my wife's trust. I'd lost my own sense of who I was. I was 69 years old, broke and ashamed, and I had no idea how to fix any of it. Our accountant, Martin Chen, came to the house 3 days later. He'd been managing our finances for 15 years. He'd helped us navigate tax implications of my retirement, set up Patricia's small consulting business, plan for our grandchildren's education funds. Now he was here to catalog our destruction. Patricia, Emma, Michael, and I sat around our dining room table while Martin spread out documents, bank statements, retirement account summaries, asset valuations. The silence was suffocating. I've reviewed everything, Martin said carefully. The withdrawals Clifford made totaled $520,000 from your joint retirement account. Patricia closed her eyes. She'd known the number, but hearing it stated officially made it real. What does that leave us? Michael asked. Your total liquid retirement savings now stand at $483,000, Martin said. You also have equity in this house, approximately $600,000, and Patricia's small retirement account, around $90,000. So just over $1 million total, Emma said quietly. Correct, Martin confirmed. However, that's a significant reduction from your previous position of approximately $1.6 million in total assets. A third of their net worth, Michael said, looking at me with something between pity and disgust. Gone, Martin continued. Based on your current expenses and assuming no major changes, your remaining liquid assets will last approximately 12 to 15 years. If you need long-term care, nursing home costs, or face any medical emergencies, that timeline could shrink dramatically. What if we sell the house? Patricia asked, her voice hollow. That would extend your runway, Martin said. But you'd need to find less expensive housing, and it would mean giving up the home you've lived in for 34 years. I watched Patricia's face. We'd raised our children in this house. Every room held memories. Now she was calculating whether we could afford to keep those memories. Are there any legal options? Emma asked. Can we report this? Try to recover the funds? Martin looked uncomfortable. I've consulted with a colleague who specializes in financial fraud. Unfortunately, the prospects are very poor. Clifford wired money to an offshore account voluntarily. There was no theft, no forgery. He was defrauded, but proving that internationally, with no physical evidence or witnesses, will be nearly impossible. What about Interpol? Michael pressed. FBI? Someone must handle international scams. They do, Martin said. But with limited resources and thousands of cases, they prioritize situations with clear jurisdictional authority and realistic recovery chances. This doesn't qualify. So the money is just gone, Patricia said. Not a question. A statement of fact. I'm afraid so, Martin confirmed. Emma turned to me. Did you keep any documentation? Emails? Text messages? Anything? I have emails, I said, and the fake investment documents. Let me see them, she said. I retrieved my laptop and pulled up my correspondence with Sabina. Emma read through everything, her expression growing grimmer with each email. This is so obviously a scam, she said finally. The language, the pressure tactics, the vague promises. How did you not see this? I saw what I wanted to see, I admitted. Michael leaned back in his chair. We need to talk about going forward. Mom, you can't retire on this timeline anymore. You'll need to keep working. Patricia was 66. She'd planned to retire next year. We talked about traveling, about finally taking that trip to New Zealand we'd always dreamed about. I know, she said quietly. Emma and I can help, Michael continued. We can contribute to your household expenses. Not the full $500,000, obviously, but we can ease the burden. No, I said. You shouldn't have to. This isn't optional, Dad, Michael cut me off. You've created a crisis that affects the whole family. We're going to help Mom. Whether we help you is still being decided. The contempt in his voice was worse than his anger had been. Emma looked at her mother. Have you thought about what this means for your marriage? Patricia didn't look at me. I don't know yet. Those 4 words felt like a knife. Martin cleared his throat. There's one more thing. Clifford, you'll likely face tax implications. The IRS may consider this a realized loss, but there are complicated rules around fraudulent investments and offshore transfers. You'll probably owe taxes on the withdrawal even though you lost the money. How much? I asked. Potentially $40,000 to $60,000, depending on how it's classified. Patricia made a small sound, not quite a laugh, not quite a sob. So we lost $520,000, she said, and now we'll owe taxes on losing it. I'm afraid that's possible, Martin said. The meeting continued for another hour. Martin outlined budget adjustments, discussed Social Security optimization strategies, explored options for reducing our lifestyle expenses. Every suggestion was a reminder of what I'd destroyed. We should sell one of our cars. We should cancel our travel plans. We should reduce our charitable giving. We should consider downsizing our home, all because I'd wanted to impress my children. When Martin finally left, the 4 of us sat in silence. Emma spoke first. Mom, you should come stay with us for a while. Get away from this. I'll think about it, Patricia said. Michael stood. I need to get back. We'll talk this week about a support plan. He left without looking at me. Emma hugged her mother, whispered something I couldn't hear, and followed Michael out. Patricia and I sat alone at the dining room table, surrounded by the financial wreckage of my pride. I don't know if I can forgive you, she said finally. I know. You didn't just lose money, Clifford. You stole our future. You stole my retirement. You stole my sense of security. And you did it all to prove something to our children that they never needed you to prove. I know, I said again. There was nothing else to say. I'm going to bed, she said, standing. I don't want you to sleep in our room tonight, or any night until I decide what I'm doing. She walked upstairs. I heard our bedroom door close, lock. I sat alone in the dining room, looking at the financial documents spread across the table. $520,000, half our retirement savings, my children's respect, my wife's trust, my own self-worth, all gone, all sacrificed on the altar of my ego. I was 69 years old, and I'd destroyed everything that mattered. And the worst part was knowing I'd done it to myself. Patricia moved into the guest room. She didn't make a big announcement, didn't have a dramatic conversation. She just quietly transferred her clothes, her books, her reading lamp. We became roommates in our own home. She'd make coffee in the morning, but only 1 cup, her own. She'd eat dinner, but she'd prepare only her portion. She'd watch television in the evening, but in the guest room with the door closed. I was living with a ghost of my marriage. Emma called every few days, but only to check on Patricia. Our conversations were brief, polite, empty. How are you, Dad? I'm managing. Good. Is Mom around? Every time. As if I wasn't the real reason for the call. Michael didn't call at all. I tried to reach out to him after 2 weeks of silence. "Michael, I know you're angry," I said when he finally answered, "but I'd like to talk, to try to explain." "There's nothing to explain, Dad," he said. "You gambled with money that wasn't just yours. You ignored everyone who tried to stop you. You destroyed Mom's security because your ego was more important than her future. That's not fair," I said weakly. "Fair?" He laughed bitterly. "You want to talk about fair? Mom worked her entire life. She saved, she planned, she sacrificed. She trusted you to be her partner, and you betrayed that trust for a stranger you met at a conference. I made a mistake. You made a choice," he corrected. "Every step of the way, you chose your pride over your family. That's not a mistake. That's character." He hung up. I sat in my home office, the room where I'd convinced myself I was making a brilliant investment, and felt the weight of his words. Character. He was right. This wasn't about being fooled. This was about who I'd revealed myself to be. I tried to work on recovering the money, even though I knew it was futile. I filed a report with the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center. I received an automated response and never heard anything else. I contacted the bank where I'd wired the money. They told me that once funds were transferred internationally to an account I'd authorized, there was no recourse for recovery. I hired a lawyer who specialized in international fraud. He took my $5,000 retainer and then explained, over the course of 3 meetings, all the reasons why pursuing this legally would cost more than we could ever recover. Every avenue was a dead end. The money was gone. Sabina, whoever she really was, had vanished with it. I joined an online support group for fraud victims. Reading other people's stories should have made me feel less alone. Instead, it made everything worse. These people had been scammed by romance con artists, fake lottery schemes, tech support frauds. They'd lost their life savings to people pretending to love them or help them or partner with them. I was just like them. Another fool who believed he was special, who thought the rules didn't apply to him, who convinced himself he was too smart to be conned. The realization was crushing. Our financial reality started to sink in. Patricia canceled our annual vacation. We'd planned a cruise to Alaska for our 43rd anniversary. That was gone. We stopped eating out, stopped buying new clothes, stopped contributing to our grandchildren's college funds. Patricia looked exhausted all the time. She was 66, working full-time at a consulting job she'd planned to leave. Every morning I watched her drag herself to work, knowing it was because of me. Emma visited one Saturday afternoon. She came to see Patricia, but I was home, so I couldn't be avoided entirely. "How's your mother?" I asked. "Tired," Emma said. "Working too hard, stressed about money." "I know," I said. "I'm trying to." "Trying to what?" she interrupted. "Trying to undo it? You can't. The money is gone. Mom's retirement is gone. Her sense of security is gone. I could get a job," I offered. "Consulting work, maybe. Try to rebuild." "You're 69 years old, Dad," she said, not unkindly. "Who's going to hire you? And for what? You'd make 40,000 a year, maybe? It would take you 13 years to replace what you lost. You'll be 82 years old." The math was brutal and correct. "I don't know what you want me to say," I admitted. "I don't want you to say anything," she said. "I want you to understand what you've done to Mom, to yourself, to all of us." "I do understand," I said. "Do you?" she asked. "Because from where I'm sitting, you're still making this about you. Your guilt, your shame, your regret. But this isn't about you anymore, Dad. This is about the woman who trusted you and the family you damaged. She was right. Even in my remorse, I was being selfish." "Your mother is thinking about leaving," Emma said quietly. My chest tightened. "She told you that?" "She's staying with us next week, to have space to think. Emma, please, tell her I'm sorry. Tell her, I'm not your messenger, Dad," she said. "If you want to communicate with Mom, do it yourself, if she'll listen." Patricia came downstairs then, carrying an overnight bag. She'd been packing while Emma and I talked. Ready? Emma asked her. Yes, Patricia said, not looking at me. Patricia, wait, I said. Can we talk? Please? She finally looked at me. Her eyes were red, exhausted. I can't, Clifford. Every time I look at you, I just feel angry and betrayed and scared about our future. I need space. How much space? I asked. I don't know yet. Emma put her arm around her mother and guided her toward the door. I watched my wife, my partner of 42 years, walk out of our home, and I didn't know if she was coming back. The door closed. I stood in the entryway of our empty house, surrounded by 42 years of shared memories, and felt completely alone. I'd wanted my children to see me as successful. Instead, they saw me as reckless. I'd wanted to prove I was still sharp. Instead, I'd proven I was desperate. I'd wanted respect. Instead, I'd earned contempt. I walked upstairs to the bedroom we'd shared for 4 decades. Patricia's side of the closet was half empty now. Her nightstand was bare. I sat on the edge of our bed and understood, finally, the full cost of my pride. $520,000 was just money. What I'd really lost was everything that money couldn't buy, and I had no idea how to get any of it back. Patricia stayed away for 3 weeks. She'd call occasionally to handle logistics, bills that needed paying, appointments to reschedule, decisions about the house. Our conversations were brief, transactional, empty of everything that had once made us a team. I'd ask when she was coming home. She'd say she didn't know. I tried to use the time to work on myself, as if I could therapy my way back to being a man worth respecting. I saw a counselor, a kind woman in her 50s who listened patiently as I explained what I'd done. I wanted to prove I was still relevant. I told her. I wanted my children to see me as more than just their aging father. And how do they see you now? She asked. Like I'm incompetent, like I can't be trusted. Is that fair? She asked. I thought about it. Yes, I admitted. It's completely fair. She asked me to write letters to my family, not to send them, just to process my feelings. I wrote to Patricia first. Dear Patricia, I don't know how to fix this. I've destroyed your retirement, your sense of security, your ability to trust me. You deserve to be furious. You deserve to leave me, but I'm asking you not to. I know that's selfish. I know I have no right to ask anything of you after what I've done, but I'm asking anyway. I love you. I've loved you for 42 years, and I'm terrified that my stupidity has finally broken something that can't be repaired. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just need you to know that I understand what I've lost, and it's not the money, it's you. I never sent it. What would be the point? I wrote to Emma and Michael too. Long, rambling apologies that tried to explain the unexplainable, but words couldn't undo what I'd done. I started attending the fraud victims support group in person. It met Tuesday evenings in a community center basement. There were 8 of us, all ages, all backgrounds, all bound together by the same humiliating thread. We'd been fooled. A woman named Dorothy, 73, had lost $60,000 to a romance scammer who'd convinced her he was a U.S. soldier stationed overseas. A man named James, 42, had lost $90,000 to a cryptocurrency scam. A couple, the Hendersons, had lost their entire retirement, $400,000, to a fake real estate investment. Everyone had a story of how they'd ignored warning signs, dismissed concerns from loved ones, convinced themselves they were too smart to be conned. I kept telling my daughter it was real, Dorothy said during one meeting, her voice shaking. She begged me to stop sending money, but I was convinced he loved me. I thought she was just jealous. I understood exactly how she felt. The worst part isn't the money, James said. It's knowing I did this to myself. Nobody forced me. I just believed what I wanted to believe. Heads nodded around the circle. That was the real wound. Not being victimized by criminals, but by our own desperate need to believe. I shared my story one evening. I lost $520,000, I said, because I wanted my children to think I was still smart, still capable, still someone worth respecting. And do they? Someone asked. No, I said. Now they think I'm reckless and pathetic. Are you? The group facilitator asked gently. I thought about it. I don't know who I am anymore, I admitted. I spent my whole life being the responsible one, the careful one, the man who helped other people avoid mistakes. And then I made the biggest mistake of my life. Do you think you're the same person who made good decisions for 37 years? The facilitator asked. Or do you think one catastrophic error erases everything else? My family seems to think it does, I said. What do you think? I didn't have an answer. Patricia came home on a Thursday evening. She didn't announce she was coming. She just walked in while I was eating a frozen dinner in front of the television. Hi, she said. Hi, I responded, muting the TV. You're home. I needed to get some things, she said. And we need to talk. My stomach dropped. Okay. She sat in the chair across from me, not next to me on the couch. The distance felt deliberate. I've been thinking a lot. She started. About us. About what you did. About whether I can move forward. I waited, terrified. I'm not leaving you, she said finally. Relief flooded through me. Thank you. Patricia, she held up her hand. Let me finish. I'm not leaving because I made a commitment 42 years ago. Because I still believe in that commitment, even if I'm not sure I believe in you right now. The words hurt, but they were fair. But things are going to be different, she continued. I'm taking control of all our finances. You'll have an allowance for personal expenses, but you will never again have independent access to our savings. I understand, I said. We're going to counseling. Together. Every week. Non-negotiable. Okay. And you're going to rebuild trust, not with words, with actions. By being transparent, by being humble, by accepting that you're not the financial expert you thought you were. I nodded. I'm sleeping in the guest room for now, she said. I'm not ready to share a bed with you yet. That'll come when it comes. If it comes. I'll wait, I said, however long it takes. She looked at me for a long moment. I hope you understand, Clifford. I'm giving you a second chance. Not because you deserve it. Because our marriage deserves it. I know, I said, and I won't waste it. She stood. I hope not, because there won't be a third chance. She went upstairs, and I heard the guest room door close, but she was home. She was staying. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even close to what we'd had, but it was something. And I was going to spend whatever time I had left proving she'd made the right choice. Even if I wasn't sure I believed it myself. 6 months after losing everything, I was still trying to figure out who I was. Patricia and I went to counseling every Thursday. Dr. Morrison, a patient man in his 60s, guided us through the slow, painful work of rebuilding. Patricia, how are you feeling about trust this week? He'd ask. I'm trying, she'd say. But every time Clifford makes a financial decision, even small ones, I feel panicked, like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's understandable, Dr. Morrison would say. Clifford, how does that make you feel? Like I've permanently broken something, I'd admit. Like no matter what I do, she'll never see me the same way again. Is that true, Patricia? Doctor? Morrison would ask. She'd hesitate. I don't know yet. That hesitation hurt more than a definitive answer would have. Our relationship existed in a strange limbo. We were married, but not partners. We shared a home, but not intimacy. We had history, but not a clear future. Some days were better than others. On good days, Patricia would make coffee for both of us. We'd sit together at breakfast and talk about small things, the weather, plans for the garden, what to watch on television. On bad days, she'd barely speak to me. I'd see her looking at our bank statements, her face tight with worry, and I'd know she was thinking about what we'd lost. I tried to contribute in small ways. I took over all the household chores. I cooked dinner every night. I maintained the yard, handled repairs, ran errands, anything to prove I was useful, that I had value. My relationship with Emma and Michael remained distant. Emma called Patricia regularly, but her conversations with me were still brief and formal. Michael didn't call at all. When I'd see him at family gatherings, the rare ones Patricia insisted we attend together, he'd be polite but cold. At Emma's birthday dinner, I tried to talk to him. "How's work?" I asked. "Good," he said. "How are the kids?" "Fine." "Michael, can we talk about what happened? Can we?" "Dad, I'm here for Emma's birthday," he said quietly. "Let's just get through dinner, okay?" I stopped trying. The financial reality settled into a grim routine. Patricia worked full-time. At 66, she should have been retired. Instead, she was putting in 40-hour weeks, coming home exhausted, and facing at least 5 more years of work before we could afford for her to stop. We sold one of our cars, canceled our streaming services, stopped buying anything that wasn't essential. Every month, I'd watch Patricia review our budget, her face growing more tired, more resigned. We were surviving, but barely. The fraud victims support group became my only social outlet. I'd go every Tuesday evening and sit with people who understood. We'd share our stories, our shame, our slow attempts at recovery. Dorothy had joined a dating site for seniors. "I'm not giving up on love," she said, "but I'm smarter now, more careful." James had started a blog documenting his experience. If I can stop one person from making my mistake, maybe it'll mean something. The Hendersons had downsized from their home to an apartment. "We're learning to live with less, Mrs. Henderson said. "It's not what we planned, but we're together. That matters." Their resilience amazed me. They'd lost everything, and they were still trying to build something from the wreckage. I wanted that, but I didn't know how to get there. One evening, Patricia came home from work and found me in my office, looking at my old investment books. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Just remembering," I said. "Who I used to be." She sat down across from me. "You can't go back, Clifford. You can only go forward." "I don't know how to go forward," I admitted. "I don't know who I'm supposed to be now." "Maybe that's the point," she said. "Maybe you're not supposed to be anyone. Maybe you're just supposed to be honest." "I've never lied to you," I said. "You lied to yourself," she corrected. "You lied about why you were making that investment. You told yourself it was about opportunity, about financial wisdom, but it was really about ego, about proving something that didn't need proving." She was right. Of course she was right. "Our children already respected you," she continued. "They loved you. You were their father. That was enough. But you needed more. You needed to be impressive, and that need destroyed everything." I felt tears building. "I know." "Do you?" she asked. "Because I'm still not sure you understand the full cost. It's not just the money, Clifford. It's the years. My years. I'll be 71 before I can retire now. Maybe older if we have any medical expenses. I'm sorry," I said, my voice breaking. "I know you are," she said, "but sorry doesn't give me back the time." She left the room. I sat alone with my old investment books and understood, finally, that I was mourning the wrong thing. I wasn't grieving the money. I was grieving the man I'd thought I was. That man, the competent investment advisor, the wise father, the trusted partner, had never really existed. He was a fiction I'd built to protect my ego. And when that fiction was challenged by my children's success, by the changing world, by my own insecurity, I'd made a desperate, catastrophic attempt to prove he was real. The real cost wasn't $520,000. It was the relationship with my wife that would never fully recover. It was the respect of my children that I'd never get back. It was the years of my wife's life I'd stolen from her. It was the man I could have been if I'd just accepted being ordinary. I was 69 years old. I had maybe 15 good years left, if I was lucky, and I was going to spend all of them trying to rebuild something that could never be what it was, not because I deserved a second chance, but because the people I'd hurt deserved a partner who was finally, painfully honest about who he really was. A flawed, insecure man who'd made the worst mistake of his life and was going to spend the rest of his days living with the consequences. 1 year after sending the money, I finally stopped checking my email for messages from Sabina. I'd spent months compulsively refreshing my inbox, irrationally hoping she'd contact me. Not to return the money, I knew that was impossible, but maybe to explain. To give me some reason, some story that would make sense of how I'd been so thoroughly fooled. She never wrote. The silence was its own answer. I was just another target, Another lonely, insecure man who wanted to believe he was special. Life developed a new rhythm. Patricia and I existed in a state of cautious coexistence. We weren't enemies, but we weren't the partners we'd been for 42 years. She'd softened slightly. She'd occasionally touch my shoulder when she passed. She'd laugh at my jokes sometimes, small gestures that gave me hope, but the guest room remained hers. And the financial control stayed entirely in her hands. I had a debit card with a monthly limit, $500 for personal expenses. Everything else, bills, groceries, savings, investments, Patricia handled. It was humiliating, but it was fair. I'd proven I couldn't be trusted with money. This was the consequence. Emma started calling me more regularly, not like before, but more than those first terrible months. She'd tell me about her work, her kids, her life. I'd listen and try not to offer advice. I'd learned that my advice wasn't wanted anymore. Grace got accepted to the science program at her school, she told me during one call. That's wonderful, I said. She's brilliant. She gets it from her grandfather, Emma said. Then paused. From Mom's dad. He was an engineer. The correction stung, but I understood it. Michael remained distant. He'd acknowledge me at family gatherings, but never sought me out. Never called just to talk. I'd lost him. Maybe forever. At a Christmas dinner at Emma's house, I watched him playing with his kids, laughing, fully present. The man I used to be before the scam would have joined in, would have been the fun grandfather who told stories and made them laugh. Now I sat on the periphery, afraid to intrude, afraid that my presence would remind everyone of my failure. Patricia saw me watching. Go play with them, she said quietly. They don't want me there, I said. You don't know that. You're assuming. Michael doesn't want me near his kids, I said. He thinks I'm a bad influence. Patricia was quiet for a moment. He told me he's afraid you'll make reckless decisions that affect their college funds. That's why he's distant. It's not hate, Clifford. It's fear. Fear that I'd mess up again. Fear that my stupidity had damaged not just our generation, but the next. I couldn't blame him. I started volunteering at a community center, teaching basic financial literacy to seniors. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man who'd lost $500,000 teaching others how to avoid scams. But I knew every tactic, every manipulation, every psychological trick that fraudsters used, because I'd fallen for all of them. Never invest in anything you don't understand, I'd tell the class. If someone is pressuring you to move quickly, that's a red flag. If returns sound too good to be true, they are. An elderly woman raised her hand during one session. But what if you trust the person? What if they seem legitimate? Trust isn't enough, I said. You need verification, independent verification. Documents, references, legal review. Trust is how they get you. Verification is how you protect yourself. I was teaching them the lessons I'd refused to learn. After one class, a man in his 70s approached me. That was helpful, he said. Thank you. You're welcome, I said. Can I ask you something? He said. You seem to know a lot about scams. Did you study them professionally? I hesitated. Then I said, no, I was a victim. I lost $520,000 to a fraud. His eyes widened. And you're teaching this class? Because of what I lost. I said, if I can stop one person from making my mistake, maybe it means something. He nodded slowly. That takes courage. I didn't feel courageous. I felt like a fraud teaching people not to be defrauded, but I kept doing it every week because it was the only thing that made me feel useful. Patricia's birthday came in March. She turned 67. Before the scam, I would have planned something special. A nice dinner out, a weekend trip, something to celebrate her. Now we couldn't afford any of that. I made dinner at home instead, her favorite meal, salmon with lemon butter, roasted vegetables, a simple salad. I'd saved my personal allowance for 2 months to buy her a gift, a book she'd mentioned wanting, nothing extravagant. She opened it at dinner and smiled. Thank you, Clifford. This is thoughtful. I wish I could do more, I said. This is enough, she said. Then, after a pause, you're trying. I see that. It was the kindest thing she'd said to me in over a year. That night, after dinner, she asked me to join her in the living room. We sat together on the couch, the first time in months we'd sat next to each other. "I've been thinking," she said, "about us, about our future." My heart raced. "Okay, I'm still angry," she said. "I don't know if that will ever fully go away. What you did changed the trajectory of our lives. I know. But I also know that anger is exhausting," she continued, "and I'm too old to stay this angry forever." "What are you saying?" I asked. "I'm saying that I'm choosing to move forward," she said. "Not to forget, not even to fully forgive, but to stop living in that moment." I felt tears building. "I see you trying," she said. "I see you volunteering, taking responsibility, accepting the consequences. That matters to me." "It's the least I can do," I said. "It's more than the least," she said. "It's accountability." And that's what I needed to see. She reached over and took my hand. The first deliberate physical contact in over a year. "I'm not ready to move you back into our bedroom," she said, "but maybe we can start having dinner together every night. Maybe we can start rebuilding what we lost." "I'd like that," I said, my voice breaking. "It won't be the same," she warned. "It can't be. Too much has changed." "I know. But maybe it can be something new," she said. "Something honest." We sat together, holding hands, and I felt the smallest flicker of hope. I'd destroyed our retirement. I'd damaged my relationships with my children. I'd lost $500,000 to my own stupidity and pride. But my wife was giving me a chance to rebuild. Not the life we'd had. That was gone forever. But maybe something real. Something earned. I was 69 years old. I had limited time left, and I was going to spend every day of it proving that her faith in me, however fragile, wasn't misplaced. The money was gone. The respect was gone. The trust was shattered, but we were still here. And for now, that was enough. 2 years after the scam, we sold the house. It wasn't a decision we made lightly. Patricia and I had lived there for 34 years, raised our children there, built our life there. But the property taxes, the maintenance costs, the utilities, it was all too much on our reduced retirement funds. We downsized to a 2-bedroom condo. Smaller, simpler, affordable. The kids helped us move. It was the first time in 2 years that Michael had spent significant time around me. He didn't say much, just carried boxes, assembled furniture, did what needed to be done. As he was leaving, he stopped at the door. "Dad?" he said. I looked up. "Yeah? This place is nice, manageable." It was the kindest thing he'd said to me in 2 years. "Thanks, Michael." He nodded and left, but it felt like something had shifted. Just slightly. The new condo forced us to live differently. We couldn't accumulate things, couldn't fill spaces with stuff we didn't need. We learned to live small. And strangely, it wasn't terrible. Patricia retired on her 68th birthday, 5 years later than she'd planned, but she finally stopped working. We had enough. Not what we would have had, but enough to live modestly. We'd never take that trip to New Zealand. We'd never help our grandchildren with college the way we'd planned. We'd never have the comfortable retirement we'd envisioned. But we had a roof over our heads. We had food. We had each other. Patricia moved back into our bedroom on our 45th anniversary. We didn't make a big deal of it. She just quietly transferred her things back, and that night, we slept in the same bed for the first time in over 2 years. I held her hand in the darkness. "Thank you," I whispered. "Don't make me regret it," she whispered back. "I won't." I kept teaching the financial literacy class. It became the thing I was known for in our community. "That's Clifford Stokes," people would say. "He teaches seniors how to avoid scams." If they knew my story, and some did, they never mentioned it to my face. I became the cautionary tale I'd tried so hard to avoid being, but I'd accepted it. It was who I was now. Emma invited me to lunch one afternoon, just the two of us. "I wanted to talk to you about something," she said after we'd ordered. My stomach tightened. "Okay. I've been thinking a lot about what happened," she said. "About how angry I was. How disappointed." "You had every right to be," I said. "I know," she said. But I also realized something. You made a catastrophic mistake. You let your ego override your judgment. You hurt Mom and damaged our family. I waited for the but. But you're still my dad, she continued. And I miss having a relationship with you. I felt tears building. I miss you too. I'm not ready to just forget everything, she said. But I'm ready to start rebuilding, slowly. I'll take slow, I said. Mom says you're doing better, that you've been accountable, that you're trying. I am, I said, every day. Then let's try, she said. Let's see if we can be father and daughter again. We talked for 2 hours, really talked, about her work, her kids, her life, about my volunteer teaching, about the condo, about small, normal things. It felt like being given a piece of myself back. Michael took longer. But on my 70th birthday, he showed up at the condo with his family. Happy birthday, Dad, he said, handing me a gift. I unwrapped it, a photo album. Pictures of our family through the years. I thought you might like to have these, he said, for the new place. I flipped through the pages, photos from when the kids were young, family vacations, holidays, weddings, grandchildren, a lifetime of memories. This is wonderful, I said, my voice thick. Thank you, Michael. You messed up, Dad, he said quietly, really badly. I know, but Mom's forgiven you. Emma's working on it, and I figure if they can, I should try too. It wasn't full reconciliation, but it was a start. That night, after everyone left, Patricia and I sat on our small balcony overlooking the condo complex parking lot. It wasn't the expansive yard of our old house. It wasn't the retirement we'd planned, but it was ours. Do you ever regret staying? I asked Patricia. She thought about it. Sometimes, she said honestly, when I'm tired from working those extra years. When I think about what we could have had. I'm sorry, I said. I know you are, she said. But sorry doesn't change what happened. It just makes living with it slightly easier. We sat in silence for a while. I'm proud of what you've built, she said finally. With the teaching, the volunteering, the way you've tried to be better. It doesn't make up for what I did, I said. No, she agreed. But it's something, and something is better than nothing. I was 70 years old. I'd lost more than $500,000. I damaged my family. I destroyed the retirement my wife deserved. But I was still here, still trying, still learning to be honest about who I really was. Not the impressive investment advisor who spotted opportunities. Just a flawed man who'd made the worst mistake of his life and was spending the rest of his days trying to earn back the respect he'd thrown away. The money was gone. The old life was gone. The man I'd pretended to be was gone. But I was still here, and I was finally learning how to be enough.